What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. English subtitles are available, you can turn them on down below. Picture soldiers being forced into a foreign battlefield they barely understand, both culturally and tactically. Holding rifles and observing military equipment they barely know how to operate, and obeying orders delivered in a language that sounds utterly alien. That's the current reality for the thousands of North Korean troops deployed in Kursk Oblast to fight on behalf of Russia and Vladimir Putin. By now, most observers realize it is a losing battle for Pyongyang's men. No matter how fiercely they press forward, they remain severely outmatched by Ukraine's modern weaponry and precise tactics. Yet, the influx of North Korean soldiers continues to be uninterrupted, even as the casualty count climbs to unimaginable levels. Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky famously declared on Twitter/X that there is no logical reason for these men to die for Putin. But, well, here they are. So, why do they keep coming, and how do these doomed deployments benefit both Russia and North Korea? It boils down to a brutally simple arrangement: oil, money, military technology, and a shared disregard for human life. But as of recently, it went to a whole new level, even for North Korean and Russian standards. What North Koreans did not that long time ago was insanely stupid. And besides that, they had an unintentional confrontation with the Chechens, which went south very quick. So today, let's talk about all these things one by one and try to figure out if there is at least something else behind this Putin-Kim Jong Un's arrangement. As we all know, the story begins with some very questionable deals made between Kim Jong Un and Vladimir Putin. Since March 2024, Russia has been pumping Pyongyang with oil and quantities that far exceeded any imposed sanctions. In addition, top-tier weapons technology ranging from advanced missile guidance systems to modern fighter jets flows into North Korea as if the two countries had never heard the word embargo. In return, Kim provides a staggering volume of artillery shells, with some analysts suggesting that more than half of Russia's munition now originate from North Korean factories. But the most appalling item is the human resource. Thousands of North Korean infantrymen, willing or most likely forced and deceived, are funneled straight to the front lines of Putin's war. The dark reality is that each life lost means little to nothing to Kim. Every soldier represents a tiny fraction of the huge oil shipments and advanced technology that bolsters his regime back home. For him, these men are expendable chips on a geopolitical table where the stakes include ballistic missile development and the survival of his dictatorship. The fact that so many North Koreans have perished in Kursk has not upset him, not at all, not even close. If anything, it is the evidence that this war partnership is all about personal and political gain, paid for in blood of regular people. But it's not like we did not know it already. What's far more concerning are the new strategies, if you can call them this way, that North Koreans started employing recently on the front lines. Regular hopeless assaults will feel like child's play in comparison to these new tactics that we're gonna discuss right now. Of course, the conflict is not merely about business transactions or bartered resources, at least not for Putin. In his mind, he is doing some sort of a grand conquest or a legendary mission, worthy only of epic tales of Peter the Great and Stalin. He wants to put his name next to these people in history books of Russia and be remembered long after he is gone. The only problem for him is that he might be remembered, but not because of the things he's doing are good. Time will pass, people will heal, and once they revisit the invasion of Ukraine story from a different perspective, I highly doubt the majority of people will see this war as a liberating one. There is not a single parameter or a characteristic that makes us think this way. So, for as long as Putin governs over Russia and has a say in propagandistic ways of brainwashing his own population, unfortunately, I doubt anything will drastically change. And sure, there are the earliest rebellion grassroots in the minds of the Russian people, specifically the women, but it will take some time before they can actually flourish into something meaningful. And obviously I'm all for it to happen as soon as possible. But anyways, let's come back to the strategies that supposed Putin's allies are using now in Ukraine. In most cases, the North Koreans employ archaic tactics, which are not suitable for the technologically advanced era of unmanned drones and guided artillery. The so-called meat-grinder approach, which served Pyongyang poorly in North Korea war already, fails on even bigger scale today. Which is no wonder. The country has been close to the outsiders for decades, that no person living inside can ever go out. But the same is true for the opposite side of the fence. Technologies, research, knowledge, modern tactics, all these bypass North Korea like the country never existed. They were left all by themselves, rehearsing the same old tactics year after year, having no chance to practice the skills against anyone by themselves. They kept learning to fight against the enemy like it was still the 1950s. So obviously, this gave them the feeling of a superiority in a conflict should they join any. After all, they definitely mastered the military tactics over the last 70 plus years. Every aspect is taken into consideration, every enemy's move is predicted and countermeasure is developed. All that fell apart as soon as North Korean troops stepped on Ukrainian soil and saw the unimaginable for them technology. Drones, modern tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, and even thermal vision cameras, which will be very important for the future of this video. But they did not have time to study it all. They were just thrown out there and told, handle it. That's your purpose being here. And yes, in a language they never heard in their lives. So obviously the results were absolutely devastating for them, to say the least. Groups of infantry lined up in open fields, hoping to overwhelm Ukrainian positions through sheer numbers alone. And meanwhile, Ukrainian soldiers simply watched through drone feeds and targeted those mass troops with little precision. So obviously, the scale of losses is staggering. In 1 week, potentially 1,000 North Korean soldiers can be injured or eliminated. Numbers that would stun any modern army. And yet, the action continues. Russian commanders, notorious for their own use of indiscriminate, hopeless assaults, see the North Koreans as a convenient tool to drive at Ukrainian lines. If they break through, excellent. If they don't, well, there is always the next wave. This deeply flawed approach only magnifies the North Korean vulnerability. But guess what? The Russian commanders went even further with their total disregard of these people. Like there is place to go further. There are credible reports, multiple ones. There are even videos which I can only show on Patreon. The link will be down below as always. And basically what happens is that individual North Koreans are picked one by one and told to become the bait for drones. Yep, just like this. Ukraine's goal to produce more than 1 million drones per year has already been met, so for them using one drone for one soldier is pretty much nothing. And while this unlucky man runs across the field waving his hands, his comrades are sitting somewhere in the forest nearby, ready to charge when the immediate danger is over. But guess what? Ukrainians discovered this tactic almost immediately, so they also use the thermal imaging drones, which allows them to easily spot the rest of the North Korean unit in hiding. So obviously they sent another drone there and, well, you can guess the rest. To say that this is insanely stupid tactic trying to achieve I don't even know what is literally to say nothing. The misery is compounded by their irrelevant preparation. Rushed through military courses by Russian units already depleted of their best instructors, North Korean soldiers arrive in course lacking even the basic combat survival skills. Some are rumored to have been trained under the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade, which has faced accusations ranging from prohibited weapon usage to blatant misconduct. Others receive their instructions from remnants of the airborne forces, men who themselves have been battered by months of fierce fighting. Imagine being taught how to handle drones and precision artillery by people who still bear the scars of unsuccessful assaults, both physical and mental. Then add the chaos of a language barrier so severe that friendly attack incidents have already occurred. Chechen soldiers, for example, have reportedly been mistaken for Ukrainian targets and targeted by North Koreans, who lack the ability to read the markings on their vehicles. Apparently, as you can see, the usage of North Koreans not only provides absolutely nothing for the Russian army, it actually does completely the opposite. Their presence harms the operations of the Russian soldiers. On top of it all, the winter conditions in Kursk are brutal. Some simply collapse from exhaustion in open fields, becoming easy targets for Ukrainians. and those who survive find little support from their fellow comrades. It's not that they would not care under normal circumstances, but they have been trained by a prehistoric system that values mission completion over life-saving measures. As a result, wounded soldiers are left to freeze or are ignored until it is too late. So, where is Putin in all this? Curiously enough, he will not even acknowledge the presence of North Korean troops in Russia. In his annual direct line press conference lasting 4.5 hours, Putin never once admitted that foreign soldiers are helping the regular Russian army along the front lines. Propagandists, on the other hand, yell left and right that the cause of Russia in Ukraine is the righteous one, since another country voluntarily joined the war. Then we have the Kremlin, which goes to extreme lengths to disguise any evidence of Pyongyang's involvement. Reportedly, fallen North Koreans have their faces like this, in order to conceal their identity, and any incriminating footage on Russian soil is swiftly destroyed. But they do not know the basic rule of the internet. Once something is uploaded there, it will exist there forever, no matter how many times you delete these photos and videos. That might seem contradictory to the partnership that so obviously exists, but apparently, the Russians want the benefits without the bad publicity. Kim Jong Un, for his part, is not overly concerned about the embarrassment factor. He is too focused on the spoils of this war: more advanced jets, more advanced missile systems, and more ways to assert his power back home. The entire arrangement hangs on silence and secrecy. If word gets out, it reveals the fragile nature of Russia's weakening position. And for North Korea, it underscores the dreadful reality that Kim must rely on these questionable traits to keep his regime afloat. For these reasons, there are reasonable rumors that Kim Jong Un is planning to continue sending his soldiers to Putin's personal pocket. For him, their value is close to zero, unlike the oil, military technology, and secrets that he receives in return. So, why ever should he stop? Well, there you have it. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you're to support my work, there are links down below, for example my Patreon, where I will be asking you guys a question, so please make sure to check it. Once again, the link is down below. Thanks so much for watching, see you on Tuesday.